English literature, short notes on literary terms. Elizabethan period, the Renaissance, Romantic age, Victorian period, modern age. Elizabethan period. Queen Elizabeth, the first of England, ruled England from 1558 to 1603. This period is called Elizabethan period after her name. This is known as the golden age of prosperity in power, commerce, art and nationalism of the English. It was the greatest age of English drama. Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and Ben Jonson were the great dramatists of this period. This age is also famous for his poetry. Edmund Spenser, the poet of poets, wrote in this period. Francis Bacon, the pioneer of the English essay, was another famous writer of this age. This age was deeply influenced by the Renaissance that broadened human outlook, created interest in enlightenment, made people humanistic and liberal. Consequently, the literature of this period is characterized by a tendency to break away from the Greek and Roman literary tradition. For this reason, this period is also considered as the birth time of English Romanticism. Elizabethan period is marked by the profundity of thought, idealism in philosophical choice, lucidity in language, and excellence in poetry. The Renaissance. The French word Renaissance has originated from the Latin word renascere, which means to be born again. In English, the Renaissance means the rebirth or revival of the ancient Greek and Roman learning, arts, and culture. The rebirth was caused by a historical event. In 1453, with the fall of the then Constantinople, the scholars living there fled to different countries of Europe, especially to Italy. They took with them the ancient Greek and Italian literature, which gradually became the center of interest of the people. The ancient learning was rediscovered. This rediscovery of our rebirth is called the Renaissance. It kindled a kind of wildfire of knowledge that kept on burning for several centuries. In England, it led the writers to classical learning that liberated them from religious control. It broadened the literary, philosophical, and intellectual horizon. It generated among them the spirit of adventure, inquiry, empiricism, and doubt in old ideas. The humanistic movement that started it enhanced sensitiveness to the formal beauty and the cultivation of the aesthetic sense. The sense of beauty influenced architecture, sculpture, painting, music, dancing, mime, drama, costume, and the like. In literature also, it took numerous forms. Spenser, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Bacon, and many other later writers had been writing in this literary atmosphere. Their literary work is the fullest flowering of the Renaissance spirit. The Renaissance was thus the result of various series of events that followed and accompanied one another from the 14th to the beginning of the 16th century. Romantic age. Towards the end of the 18th century, the new classical mode of writing was worn out and a new trend in literature became imminent. The new trend became visible in the mid-80s when the French Revolution took place in 1789. The ground of this new kind of creative writing had already been prepared in the United Kingdom. William Blake published 2 volumes of this new kind of poetry. In 1798, William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge published a collection of poems entitled Lyrical Ballads, and with it began the new age known as the Romantic Age. The other famous poets of this age were P.B. Shelley, John Keats, and Lord Byron. Jane Austen and Sir Walter Scott were the noblest of this period. Writers of this period preferred common people and common language to sophisticated urban people and their grand language. A strong desire for improving the conditions of man was a driving force of the literature of this age. The other features of this age were high imagination, liberalism, love of nature, Hellenism, and the use of supernatural powers. Victorian period. In English literature, the period from 1832 to 1901 is known as the Victorian period. It is named after Queen Victoria, who reigned in the United Kingdom from 1832 to 1991. The age is marked by the Reformation Bill, Charles Darwin's evolution theory, Karl Marx's concept of socialism, the Industrial Revolution, philosophical positivism, the inception of feminism, and the middle class respectability. Disbelief, hypocrisy, affluence, prudery, and complacency characterized the age. However, it was a period of prolific literary production. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Robert Browning, E.V. Browning, and Matthew Arnold are the famous poets of this age. Charles Dickens, W.M. Thackeray, Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, George Eliot, and Thomas Hardy are the great novelists of this age, and Carlyle Arnold, Huxley, J.S. Mill, and Ruskin are the well-known essayists of this period. Attitudes of compromise, moral earnestness, purity, both religious and secular, didacticism, and social equity dominated the Victorian literature. Modern age. Modern period starts with the beginning of the First World War in 1914 and ends in 1939 when the Second World War began. The First World War caused massive destruction not only to the socio-political structure of Europe but also to the Western culture, belief, tradition, and values. After the war, the capacity of Christianity and traditional values was questioned as they utterly failed to uphold peace. Consequently, a break with the traditional modes of life took place. In literature, new tendencies replaced the old established rules. A visible change in the selection of subject, form, and style became evident. Literary experiments and movements marked the age. Symbolism, imagism, existentialism, expressionism, surrealism, a stream of consciousness theory, and psychoanalysis are some of the new trends that characterized the literature of this period. Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, Dylan Thomas, W.H. Auden are the poets of this age. James Joyce, Joseph Conrad, D.H. Lawrence, Virginia Woolf are some of the famous novelists of this period. G.B. Shaw, Samuel Beckett, and Bertolt Brecht are the leading dramatists of this modern age. Okay, viewers, thank you for watching my video.